The title that you see is Driving Industry Collaboration and Organizational Changes in the Digital Age. It is a mouthful, and so I tried to dissect this a little bit more while addressing all of the parts and pieces of that actual title. And so, first we've got Lindsay Rem, who is a Senior VP of Digital Transformation for Barton Malow. We've got Alex Belkoffer from Senior VDC for VDC for McCarthy. And then Jad Chowhoop, who is the Director of Business Analytics from Rosendin. And so let's just jump in and get started. And so the title of the panel discussion, like I said, I'm focusing on the latter part first. So the organizational changes in the digital age. So technology evolves and becomes an integral part of how we do business within our industry companies and are structuring themselves in various ways to accommodate the technology movement. So to kick off the conversation, I noticed that each of you have unique titles related to VDC, data, and digital technologies. Can I ask each of you to describe in 3 minutes or less? I know that'll be really hard, especially for Alex. I know, I'm sorry. I'm giving him a hard time.
You get known for things. You just get known. It's okay.
Yes,
I embrace it.
I won't short the rest of you. I'll just cut him off. How your company is structured from a digital technology and VDC standpoint, and what's your individual role within the structure within your company. So I'll start off with Lindsay.
Oh man,
I know, she's first.
Yeah, so like you said, Lindsay Rem, I lead business, it's actually business transformation for Barton Malow, but it's very much digital as well, so I think it makes sense. So how are we structured to support this? We have multiple teams in the business. I happen to lead a number of the teams that are in technology and innovation, but some of them exist outside of the team as well. So our virtual design and construction team is located within our operations, so very close to the operations of the business. We have a data and automation team that is focusing really on experimentation, getting us organized as far as our data is concerned, and experimenting with different solutions for AI. And then within the business transformation family of teams, we have our lean, which is really focused on our process. We have a construction technology team that deploys and trains on our existing technology stack, as well as does a lot of the research on new technologies coming into the business, partnering with operations. It's our systems team, which is IT, so that's right integrated with these other teams as well. And then a disruptive innovation team, which is our smallest of the teams that focuses really on kind of Horizon 3 type innovation and really trying to push the boundaries. So we've separated them from everyone else because they're not as focused on the short-term results. And then, so I lead that overall team. I've been with the company for almost 26 years, started in operations, and then came in and gradually took on these various things, started our virtual design and construction team years ago. And so partnered with all of those other teams in the business, but I don't have to lead every single one of them. How about that?
Very good.
Thank you. Alex.
All right. Well, I'll kind of go back.
3 minutes.
Yes, that's right.
Did I do it?
Keep
Was
the
that
clock
3
on.
minutes? Oh, okay.
So 8 years ago when I came to McCarthy, the initial ask of myself was to come into the business and really create a VDC program. And I quickly learned that we went from a culture of BIM people doing BIM things to trying to implement VDC regionally to now where I feel like we've come to is creating a VDC culture that's embedding itself in construction operations. So while the title says VDC, I feel like it's really evolving daily and rapidly as our business is growing. It's really connecting the dots throughout the operational life cycle of what we do. So the challenge that I have every day is trying to do that from a position that is really connecting with other leadership groups and committees. We don't have an iron fist top-down approach at McCarthy. We're an employee-owned organization. So it's sometimes slow to move the Titanic, and that's kind of my day-to-day focus is connecting the dots between our design phase leadership, our operations phase leadership, our innovation department, which is corporate. VDC is not a corporate function as of yet, and really trying to make sure that we're connecting the right dots as the business is moving very, very quickly and rapidly to put us in position for really what I would call digital delivery, which is a lot of what you guys have moved to and a lot of others have. So.
That was a minute and a half.
Thank you. Wow.
I can keep going.
Good job.
But can I push on it for a second? I'm sorry, can I?
Of course.
So where does it exist? Where does VDC exist? Is it with IT? Is it separate from IT? So from a structure standpoint, sorry.
So VDC is still
I'm
a
super curious.
regional structure.
Okay.
However, I lead our national VDC core leadership team.
Gotcha.
And that group is nestled in between design phase leadership and operations phase leadership.
Okay,
So it's evolving.
that's, yeah, similar.
So we have a slightly different flavor of this. IT is an organization that exists. VDC is a corporate function that is moving back to being more regionally led. Technology started from within VDC, partnered with IT, separated into its own thing. It's called Tech and Analytics, and now it's getting rebranded into innovation, with the lines very, very blurry between where IT starts and innovation ends, and when do we hand it back to IT when it becomes a standard thing. So it's along the same lines of evolution as we try to understand how the business reacts to different initiatives. We're an employee-owned company as well, just like yourself, not a very big iron fist top-down approach. So a lot of my day-to-day is making sure that all the teams are aware of all the stuff that are happening in all the different nooks and crannies of the company, and making sure that we provide a cohesive digital delivery as part of the Rosendin brand.
So when you say digital delivery, does that mean both 2D and 3D, I'm guessing, right, combined?
And yes, and that's mostly the VDC side. What I'm more concerned about is the teams knowing the tools that are available for them internally and how that reflects in the product that we deliver to our customers. So a lot of the stuff that we do might not be immediately visible to our customers or our partners, but they're enabling our teams to be their best selves.
All right. Thank you so much. And I want to share a little bit also, because I'm with PCL Construction, so our structure is a little bit different as well, just for a minute. So we encompass VDC, but our group is actually called Integrated Construction Technology, as you can see in my title. So it's beyond the VDC. It's just field technology, technology that we implement in general. Now, that being said, it has been a challenge within our company to kind of figure out where those bookends are, right? And it could go all over the place. When I first started, which was 2 years ago, I get questions anywhere from crane technologies to IT-related technologies. Finally, we're getting to this tech governance framework to be able to structure that more appropriately so that people can figure out what umbrellas are underneath, and we're able to manage that more respectively. So just want to share on that. So thank you all for sharing our new structure a little bit. So the second question, now that each of you have described your company's structure and making technology a key role within your organization, what have you experienced to be the benefits and challenges of having the special structures within your company? And I'll start from the far side this time with Chad.
There's a lot of challenges associated with not having an IRF. The most important thing, and the thing that has been the biggest challenge, but also the biggest blessing, I think, at Rosendin, is the lack of the top-down approach has enabled a lot of grassroots innovation, which is, in a lot of cases, a very, very good thing because you develop a culture and people are always looking to improve. The challenge starts lying in not being able to extract those and learn from pitfalls and mistakes that others have made, and not be able to generalize the successes that they've had. So a lot of the job is actually not to create something new, but to kind of enable and uncover those hidden gems that are somewhere in the business, and teach how we can celebrate quote unquote failures, because that means we have them once. If you celebrate the failure, hopefully everyone will hear the celebration and they will not have the exact same pitfall. And with a company our size and having, we have jobs from Hawaii to Baltimore, people will most likely not meet and share those experiences organically. So our job is to elevate those experiences and share them across the company. There's other challenges, like I said, as it relates to when does innovation start, when does it become a standard practice that should be managed and governed by IT or operations or whatever. But I feel like those are more procedural. The real challenge is in the non-structured part of the job. I don't know. What do you think?
No, that's good. I'll tap on your comment about the grassroots part. I think that that's one of our benefits is that we kind of self-recognize that we had too much practice happening that was just chasing shiny objects early on. You know, the BIM people doing BIM things. Like it was solving immediate needs, but it wasn't solving like more of a long-term strategy and building a program of this is our process, this is how we digitally deliver. So when we recognized that, we started to really come together more and recognize that it was kind of like we need to be one band, one sound, not a bunch of separate groups trying to do their own thing. And so now we've created kind of this national VDC culture, even though we don't report into the same structure. So now when we do a national VDC summit or we've got these VDC leadership conversations, it's more about how are we connecting the dots for the whole business, not just supporting the central region or supporting the southwest region. So there's a lot of good there. It also allowed us to influence upward a lot of ways that we believe VDC is really woven into the fabric of everybody's role in the company, not just VDC people need this piece of technology to do this thing, but we want to adopt technology that's going to help globally, all of our partners. But the biggest challenge though is that without a top-down approach, you're spending a lot of time in leadership conversations, spending time with committees, you're getting on planes, you're trying to connect a lot of dots as the ship is moving rapidly, and it's hard to turn it when you're trying to affect both short-term and long-term change. And so I think that's also part of the benefit of where we're going to go next, hopefully, is that we're going to be bringing together, I'm going to call it convergence. We're converging a lot of the needs of the business, and technology is going to become more critical to being responsive to the needs of the business, not just a bolt-on or not just well, these groups are doing their things and we'll make sure that that's a part of the strategy at some point. We're trying to get to having a seat at that table. I'm going to take a tools slide that was bullet point number 10 about the technologist being in the C-suite someday. I'm going to send that to my COO after we leave Austin. But that's where I think it really does need to go. I think that all of us are striving for being a part of the strategy because at the end of the day, technology is not going to go backwards. It's going to be a critical asset to how we deliver our services throughout the entire life cycle.
For sure.
And before we go on to you, Lindsay, I just wanted to add a little bit. When we were prepping for this call and we got this group together, I believe it was you, Lindsay, that brought up, and I think you guys are all alluding to it, is that efficiencies become behaviors. And so I think that's the mindset that everybody's wanting to go to, and that's how we can get more, drive behind what we're trying to accomplish together.
Yeah. So as not to be repetitive to what you guys just said, because all of that is absolutely true for our business as well, I'm going to speak a little bit to the structure that we're in now, where I lead these multiple teams kind of under one umbrella that we're calling business transformation. That's about, say, 6-9 months old. And it's been great to have Lean sitting alongside IT, sitting alongside construction technology, sitting alongside disruptive innovation, as I bring those teams together to have them understand each other. So Lean wanted to do value stream mapping sessions and process mapping without really an understanding of our technology stack and how it could benefit the business. And they're like, well, we're purists. We just do process, we don't do technology. It's like, nobody in the business gets to think that way. So how can we change that? Likewise, as we're looking at disruptive innovation, to really understand current state and how you got there is so important. They were thinking, well, that's just optimized stuff. I don't need that. And so bringing these together has been incredibly powerful. I'd highly recommend it. And there's still parts of the business that I am strategically responsible for VDC, even though it does not report to me in any way, shape, or form. So leveraging the relation, it makes it difficult to make sure that it moves ahead, and it moves ahead in an aligned way. It makes it difficult, but it's not impossible. And creating mechanisms for these groups to come together has, I think, is helping to move things forward and to make sure that we're kind of hitting all parts of the business.
I'm going to veer off a little bit. It's more of a comment than a question, then we'll move to the next question. But Lindsay, you've mentioned a couple times that Lean is kind of grouped in with your digital technologies or your transformation. And I find that interesting. I didn't quite hear that from the other companies. And I don't know that companies overall are really seeing Lean as part of that, as more so part of the scheduling department or whatnot. And so I just thought it was a really interesting way to structure your company. And I'm not sure how many are doing that right now, but I do feel it teeters between both a bit, right? Between the scheduling, obviously, and Lean technologies. But I think that is a great kind of forward way of thinking to go. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always talk about people, process, technology, and yet we separate them all into different buckets all over
Yes,
the place.
yes.
So trying to get that cohesiveness is really difficult.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Okay. So another topic that you guys had brought up during the prep was, so we've got general contractors represented here with Barton Mallow and McCarthy, and then we've got Rosenden, who's also a very well instructed subcontractor here, represented. So both, some of our partners together, and so we talked about, well, what are the downstream effects? If we've got general contractors that have these standards in place for technology, they've got a structure already in place, what are the downstream effects to our sub-trades at the end of the day? And so maybe we'll start with you again, Jad, to talk about, or we could start from the GC side and then how it trickles down.
He probably wants to hear from us first.
You want to hear from us?
Before he
Okay.
responds.
All right, yeah, I'm down.
What the heck,
Now
guys?
you got to start in the middle.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, there you
It's been
go.
this and that, and now the middle.
Yeah, I really do believe when we talk about creating a culture of accountability that from the technology aspect, we need ultimate trust if we're going to be able to implement something and expect our trade partners to get on board with it. So I'm a big believer in having a lot of upfront discussions, even before we're interviewing for bid evaluations. Do you believe this is going to allow us to be successful, not just McCarthy implementing these standards and saying, are you good to do this or are you not? I really do believe that it's more of a community, town hall forum type conversation with your key trade partners so that when we go and do these things, it's valuable for the entire project, but the owner sees value at the end of the day. We're talking about these advanced approaches to digital asset management and advanced approaches to helping owners maintain their facilities for better and longer. And we're hoping that they're going to call us for the next one. But if we struggle to implement our own standards and then have to hurry up and get the ball over the finish line and give them something that hopefully meets the mark, don't we want to have the confidence that it actually does meet the mark of both project execution and building lifecycle operations and maintenance? So that's really this delicate dance that we're playing. We got to solve the needs of the job, but we also got to solve the needs of the long-term value for the person who's going to have to live with it long after we're gone and the keys are turned over. So I think that's the day-to-day struggle, but it's also the biggest opportunity if we can get it right. I'll start there.
Great, thanks.
So me? Yeah. So yes to all of that again. I love this. You guys are, you're taking the words on my mouth. So an angle to take. One of ours, we self-perform multiple trades, and our director of self-perform, or our vice president of self-perform, said to me once that the trades are the dumping grounds of all of the efficiency that comes upstream. So the designer puts in place all sorts of things to be more efficient in doing their design, and then the general contractor puts in place all sorts of things to be more efficient, and then ultimately it gets down to the trades, and they're like the dumping grounds of all of that. Like essentially this efficiency creates a tremendous inefficiency for them in the field. And so we've been taking that really to heart and looking at, that's where all the cost is. That's where all of the productivity issues in our industry, it all lies in the field. So trying to take that opposite approach is, what do we need to do in design in order to enable productivity in the field? What do we need to do with our construction management processes that will ultimately enable the productivity in the field? And we're doing it imperfectly, for sure. But I really like the way that people are, that our team members are thinking about that and starting kind of from the field and working backwards, as opposed to what can we do to automate a little bit more of design or automate this. It's like, if we're automating crap, it's still crap. I mean, that's just the bottom line, right, at the end of the day. So, but I'll turn it over to you because I'm particularly interested in what you have to say on this.
I will start from a much more compassionate place and tell you that even within our organization, the support groups often forget the fact that we are serving the field. And so we are just as liable to doing automations in design or in scheduling or in or whatever that don't translate into efficiencies at the field. And we are continuously trying to learn from those. So us being in one organization and still having a little bit of a blind spot for this, I can see it exasperating with other partners. The other thing I can tell is we have seen a convergence with repeat partners, especially with the same customers. We've got a few GC partners with whom we work for the same customer multiple times, and we've seen a lot of convergence in some of the stuff that are required from us that maybe early on we didn't see the value in, and the stuff that we're asking them to enable and provide that maybe they don't see the parts in. It's almost like your greens and your sweets. I have 2 kids and we fight about food all the time, and they always want the sweets. They don't see that it's not always good for them, and I always want them to have their greens and they don't care about it. And it's that back and forth and push and pull. That being said, it's becoming more and more important, especially with some of the stuff that Phil talked about in the beginning with, now this is not just a temporary labor shortage. This is a permanent thing that we have to live with, to become very, very deliberate about the introduction of technologies that are ultimately, and how they ultimately impact the field. And I think it's becoming less and less tolerated that something will take a little more toll on the field. Even if it has some benefits earlier on, that's our bottleneck. And so that it becomes a very conscious and cognizant effort to make sure that we don't impact the field negatively in any way, shape, or form, even if there is a potential benefit upstream. So yeah, I can see it. There are tons of examples. I think the oldest example that I've seen was the slip sheeting, and how all the technologies have enabled the slip sheeting very easily. And every time you slip sheet something with whatever tool, it's super easy. You don't have to print it and go to the trailer and remove one sheet and put another. But that means that I have to review it and my team has to react to it. And it's, I think, the most hated technology by subs and the most loved technology by general contractors. And there's a lot of other examples. The important thing is it's being recognized. I have yet to meet a GC in the past 4 years that says, deal with it, I don't care, which is the important part. Culture is growing. So thank you guys.
Really quick on that note, I think that value and care are very, very interwoven. For someone to realize value in their role, like whatever their persona is, they have to care about it. And so you've got to be able to tug at that chord. And if we don't strike that sooner than later to really allow the industry to take the next step with technology, embedding that in their toolkit, their day-to-day, then you could miss the mark, right? And that's the risk that we all run, is if we can't strike that chord and connect value to them caring, then these things don't progress.
One thing that I've run into personally working on the general contractor side for many years that maybe I didn't hear is a challenge that I've run into many times is where you're trying to, for instance, start on the day-to-day kicking off coordination, and you've got, my saying would always be, you're only as good as your weakest link. And so if there's a subcontractor or multiple that don't have the technologies or can't invest in the technologies, how do you overcome that hurdle to be able to get everybody kind of on an even playing ground so that we're able to utilize the technology to our fullest, right, as general contractors and as a team together. So I don't know if you guys have any advice on that, because I'm sure you all have run into that in some aspect.
Why don't you speak to it? You're probably
You sure
closer
you
to
don't want
it
to go
than I am.
first, Lindsay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I'm not going first this time.
Okay.
You're probably closer to it than I am.
That's fair. I do feel like, as part of our strategy, whether it's writing a BIM execution plan or it's trying to get people to understand, like, these are kind of the main parameters of delivering work when you're working with McCarthy, I feel like it's really trying to make sure that the industry is recognizing that the somewhat standard of care, or like the minimum requirements for delivering on our projects is digital. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter what program you're using or maybe what your firm is even using internally. Like, we've got to recognize that the construction industry is becoming more and more digital, and so BIM is a core element of delivering digitally successfully. Automation of information exchange is becoming really just foundational. We're not using fax machines anymore, right? So yeah, what's a fax, right? So you've got to recognize that, and we've got to take that step. And so we're just towing that line. And every job, there is a digital delivery strategy with the trade partners, with the owner. Those discovery conversations are happening up front. It's not just going through the old, rigmarole of, we're going to coordinate models and we're going to put it in the scopes of work and we're just going to, hope for the best. Like, we're having more intentional discussions around ensuring alignment, making sure that people have the digital tools that they need. McCarthy actually provides a lot of those digital tools on a number of our jobs. We provide those licenses. We lessen that point of entry to make it palatable so that our partners can do what they do best, which is being an amazing trade partner for electrical or mechanical, or really just making sure the owner is truly going to get what they want at the end of the day. And sometimes you have to have the conversations around what do you want at the end of the day up front so that you really hit that mark. It may not be in the RFP, it may not be itemized in the contract, but if someone wasn't at the table who wrote that language, we need to talk to those stakeholders. And so that's a big part of what I try to focus on, is having the right people at the table early to make sure that we've got the right tools, we're targeting the right goals, and we're going to get those deliverables over the line at the end of the day, and they're going to be high value, not just checking a box.
I will take the other side of this, and remembering that even though a lot of the construction is becoming digital, it is still construction. And so while I can't speak to subcontractors who don't have technology groups, because we've got one of the biggest technology and VDC groups, sometimes people can get lost, especially non-construction folks that are working in construction digital capacities can get lost in the minute specifics of the digital aspect. I have seen this a few years ago on a small project where BIM was required. We were doing underground. We were laying PVC underground, and the tolerance was set to 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch PVC versus dirt, and we had like 3,000 clashes. No one's going to go fix 3,000 clashes. The PVC lays on the dirt, and you move on with your life. And for some of the people that were on the VDC side, both on Rosendin and the partners groups, were like, no, these are clashes. The system says it's a clash, I have to fix it. Okay, it's construction, it's fine. And so there's a fine line between how much you teach digital to construction folks and how much construction you teach to your digital native groups within your organization. So just a word of caution, you don't want to fix PVC versus dirt clashes.
I couldn't agree more, and I would say there's a line of acceptance is really what you're getting to, right? It's not clash free, it's clash acceptance or clash coordinated in a way. But even beyond clash, the reality is field construction is still field construction, and the digital deliverable, whatever it may be, there's a line of acceptance.
Exactly, and finding that line of acceptance from a digital perspective will allow you to work a lot more. I can only imagine if that project had a less experienced VDC team, it probably would have been a lot worse than it was when we were part of it. So just being, compassionate, reasonable is still something that's very important in this culture.
Especially when you're trying to get 30-year superintendents to sign off on a model. You're going to have varying levels of acceptance there, even in that own right.
So funny enough, in that specific example, when we finally figured it out, we went to the super and like, okay, we're done. We're not going to clash this. We had an agreement and we're going to move on. He's like, what are you guys talking about? We poured concrete 3 weeks ago.
It's done.
Like, it's been done. We're not going to wait for you. So absolutely.
There you go.
And I always like to add an aspect of this, and I call it reverse mentorship, right? So when you're talking about those experienced superintendents that have all that knowledge, and a lot of those baby boomers are about to retire here in the next 5 to 10 years, is that they need to download that knowledge in some way or form to these people that are just coming out of school, very tech savvy, but don't have that experience, the knowledge. And so to be able to have that collaboration between those two different demographics, I think is a really important piece for us right now within the next 5 to 10 years, like I said.
Definitely.
Yeah. One last piece I want to get in real quick, then we'll get a couple Q&A questions and you can go to lunch. Hopefully I've still got your attention. So I did want to ask, to just kind of wrap it up, just one piece of advice, because a few of you have had mentioned that you're all, it's awesome that your companies are getting bought in from the top down, right? And so some of the companies, I think, really struggle with that, and that's how they haven't been able to move the needle as far as technology goes, or building some sort of infrastructure related to technology. So I would just like to hear a bit of advice from each of you as far as how you've gotten, that buy-in from the executive level down, and what advice would you give to maybe those companies that aren't as successful right now with doing that?
Go, okay.
Yeah.
So one piece of advice, trying to think back, it's been so accepted for a while, but I can think of areas of the business where it's not as accepted. So results win out all day long. So, finding people that are willing to do the work and put something in place without it being the widely accepted process, and just take that leap, and then show the results that are possible, and then convey it to the right people in the organization. But talking about this stuff, putting together the most beautiful slide decks, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't land. They've got to see actual results.
Performance speaks for itself, right? And
Performance does
metrics.
speak for itself.
I've got so many slide decks. Oh my
Yeah.
God. To me, it's really about not blazing the technology trail alone. You need to have sponsorship. You need champions in the organization. I've spent a lot of time in my 8 years at McCarthy connecting the dots with VP Ops, with VPs of Pre-Con, with corporate leadership, and just trying to make sure that we are aligned with our mission and our vision. Some of you may know a few years back, we kind of recalibrated our VDC approach, and we started to call it the culture of the integrated virtual builder, or IVB. And so when you talk to folks at McCarthy and you hear the term IVB, it's all about building in the technology approach to personas in the organization. How does a superintendent become a digital superintendent? How does a pre-con manager become a digital pre-con manager? Getting them to care in their role, their persona, how digital technology can enhance and drive value. And so that's been a cultural movement for us, and we've gotten the leadership, the VP Ops, the folks like that, to buy into that. And from there, they just said, all right, Godspeed. Like, you've got our support. If you run any roadblocks, let us know. And that's allowed us to thrive for as far as we've gotten, and we got to keep going.
So 2 years ago, as we started to transition more from, or I started to focus more from just data to general innovation, I was talking with a mentor, and we had a new CEO come in, and I was asking her, how can I get him more interested in innovation? And she spent 30 minutes asking me personal questions about the CEO. What's his experience? How old? Where did he come from? And at the end, she gave me a recommendation, but the bulb that went off is there's no generic thing that I can tell you. Here's how you win. Here's how you get your spouse to love you. These are very, very specific things to the executives that you have. So the first thing that I want to encourage you is you have to learn the person very, very well in order to tailor a message that will land with them. Because the previous CEO was he wanted to, he's a nerd. So I'm like, I want to do this. He's like, go. New CEO, completely different mentality. The other thing that I've also learned over the past 6 or 7 years, you can't win them all, not at once. Some things will just not land with a few of your leadership, and that's fine. Eventually you'll come across something that will land with them and they will connect with, but you don't have to win each and every one of your leadership at the onset for whatever idea you're starting with. So just learn about them, and accept that some of them will just never be on board.
That's well said.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, learning about them on a personal basis and then just working one by one, right, to get to your goal, I think is a great way to go. Yeah.
And I will add one thing, now that I'm thinking about it. Your naysayers now can be your best resources in a few years. We had one person at the company, and I'm going to try to make this as generic as possible, that would not accept anything for about 10 years, 5 before I started and 5 after. And then something that he's passionate about came up, and we were able to enhance it. And that person would stand up in leadership meetings and say, this team did something amazing. And everyone would be like, how did you get X to support you? That speaks volumes. So someone who's a naysayer for a long time can be a very, very good asset at some point in the future.
Yeah, don't ignore them. Yeah.
Right. Keep trying.
Keep trying.
Yeah, keep trying to win them over. Yeah,
Find
absolutely.
those advocates and celebrate those wins.
And they
right?
know they're not partial. They're not just saying things to say things. They're usually the biggest naysayer, and now they're good. So yeah, it worked really well.
I know when you go get the early adopters on board, people are like, well, of course they said yes.
Exactly.
Right.
But when you get the person that's the resistor on board, it's a whole nother
It can
level.
take time to extract what someone really truly cares about and what strings you got to pull.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. That's great advice. I wanted to give a couple minutes of Q&A if anybody has any questions for this wonderful panel. Oh, you really aren't thinking about, you're thinking about lunch, aren't you?
Lunch.
Yeah.
That's right.
Not one question?
Oh,
there you
Sasha's
go.
got
Thank
one.
you.
almost lunchtime.
Hi, all. Good to see you. Sasha Reed with Procore. Part of what I think you're talking about is almost the evolution of a decade's worth of investment in technology. And I know, Lindsay, from your team, symbiotic mentorship was a story I covered at the time with Bluebeam almost 10 years ago now. And that was really uncovering some of the operational excellence you were trying to push through. My question to each of you is, as you're looking at this integration across people, process, and technology, what are you measuring as metrics to see if it's actually moving the needle for the business? Or do you have that metric?
I can start. We're going through an effort. I'll give an example. We're going through an effort right now, a pretty intense effort, where we are really trying to process map out lots of operational processes in the organization, and we're kind of going at it by persona. So the role of the pre-con, the role of the VDC, the role of field operations. And it's kind of surprising that maybe we haven't done that earlier in our company's history, but the reality is that as we've grown so rapidly and the business markets are expanding and we're adding more people to the business, it's become readily obvious to us that you can't just plug in a superintendent that's been doing healthcare for 15 years and drop them on a solar project. So they need a roadmap. They need something that they can understand how the project life cycle should operate in their role from plan, design, construct, and operate. So that effort has been ongoing for about the last couple years now, and it's really trying to create, this idea of a fully connected project operations map for how we do our business. It sounds crazy. It is kind of crazy. It's very intense, but I think that's getting us to this place where we're going to have a internal management system that is really going to allow our people to understand how we execute, not just physically, but digitally as well.
I would love to say, Sasha, that we're more mature in measuring the results of this than we are, but the ways that we've looked at it since we began this journey, a really big one is our write-downs on an annual basis. So write-downs are we make 2.5%, so every write-down is particularly damaging to our overall performance. And we've seen, since we have been fully digital on our projects, literally like this. Certainly there's other things that have impacted that as well, but the insight that we have into our projects from being digital allows us to recognize issues earlier, jump on those. The coordination that we're doing, all these things have led to that. Currently, what we're embarking on is measuring hours saved. So we're just going to do just a really simplistic thing. Implemented new conference room technology. It saves 700 hours for our admins running around the building trying to get people to work on it. We did this thing over here that led to this many hours. We're trying to make it apparent to people how even small things can trickle through the business and make big change. And that could be just a process change. It could be a technology. And then we're trying to look at when we can make bigger changes, when we can make system changes, potentially, how big the impact can be there. We felt like hours saved and not cost. What was the word that was used by our Ohio State? I loved that. It was cost avoidance. That was wonderful. I'm going to use that from now on. I love cost avoidance, but when we were focusing on dollar metrics, it just wasn't connecting with people because they weren't feeling like it really was changing the cost of a project or what the customer was seeing necessarily. But when we say hours saved, you're working 12 hours, can we get you to working 8 hours a day? It's things like that that I think are starting to resonate with people, and so that's what we're starting to do. I'd be really interested from people what you guys are measuring, because it's hard.
I love that. Subtraction is the word we use a lot too. Yeah, subtraction, and also looking at technology debt is the other one we looked at, is how much overlap do we have in the different applications that we have. I want to jump in and ask a question here too, the panel, if you don't mind. I was like, how do you prioritize these change initiatives within your company? Because there is this sort of impact to the front lines to consider, and how much change can they absorb at any given time. So I'm just curious on your perspective on how do you prioritize, what's the right number of initiatives to deploy, and obviously the more you deploy, the more difficult it is to measure truly its impact.
Hire a lobbyist.
I say Jad has to go first.
I have no idea. The truth is we've rolled out stuff as they've become technically mature for a long time. And we have, in the past 18 months, we've heard we're done. I don't care what this can do for me. I don't care what the impact is. I don't want it. I'm good. And this is in pockets of places that have been, because some of the stuff that we rolled out don't impact everyone in our company. So in the places where there's overlap of they've seen 5 or 6 things trying to be rolled out, they're like, okay, we're saturated for now. We need to stabilize. This is something that is a big part of our new innovation strategy about how do you prioritize stuff that might technically mature at the same time. Generally speaking, functions or support groups are more tolerant of rapid change. So we keep hitting until we hit the block there. With the field or operations, we are trying to get together a focus group that can act as a litmus test of saying, out of these, I think this one's going to go, the other ones wait a little bit. We'll see. I'll report back in a year or 2 and tell you how well that's working. I don't know that we fixed it yet.
We might be taking a similar approach. We have a technology steering committee now that is the bridge between design phase and operations phase, and they meet with corporate IT, and you lobby essentially. I wasn't kidding, but like you essentially lobby and you say, what are the corporate initiatives that are needing to happen? Are we, implementing a new CRM versus, we need a new pre-construction tool? Like, and you go to bat and you have those discussions, but we kind of do like the impact versus value assessment with them, and we put it on a leaderboard, if you will, and you have those discussions of prioritization.
Great.
We're very, very similar.
Yeah.
Where you mentioned subtraction. Did you read Huggy Rao stuff? Is that what you guys are? He's got subtraction, but he's also got a book called Friction. And friction, put in place positive friction for things that you want to, people like to think about and, before they, so I feel like our role has become to put positive friction into the system. So all these suggestions, we should do this, we should do that. And we say, oh, do you have a value stream map? Do you have a current state analysis? Do you have an ideal state map? I'm like, oh, like go do that. And then how many of them do? Like it really tests how passionate they are about the thing and how big of a problem is that they're trying to solve. And then it also grounds it in something bigger where it's not just, oh, we want to plug in this one thing. How does that fit? And so that's helped quite a bit.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, why don't we wrap it up here and we can break out for some lunch. But let's give a round of applause to the panel here. Thank you.